Welcome to Health Oddity, episode 139. What a great time to be alive. We have spring. I've seen the sun actually today. It's not been the case probably the last 9 months, but I'm here with the two other hosts. We've got James and Peter, and today I'm taking over the reins and doing the introductions and doing the general chit chat. But usually we ask Pete how he's doing. Today I thought, James, you're sitting in that seat. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good indeed. Looking forward to this conversation very much. And we just had a little bit of a conversation with our guest today before we started recording. And I think it's going to be a really good one. Been looking forward to this for a few weeks. So, but yeah, I'm fantastic, and I'm raring to go.
I mean, you've well, it goes without saying we've got Denis Vasilev on the podcast today, and we've done a course together, didn't we? With David Cohen. Kind of where he taught us some of the principles of long cycle, biathlon, the kettlebell sport principles. How did you find that, James?
Yeah, totally different. Obviously, I mean, I've done mainly kind of hard style stuff, and then obviously coached by Paul McElroy now. So kind of more of, I'd say, like a hybrid style in my own training. And we did the full kind of kettlebell sport day with David, which was really interesting. And yeah, I mean, I followed Denis for a long time on Instagram and online, and yeah, just the fluidity of movement, the technique, the strength, and obviously the endless hours of practice that go into with the endless hours and years and decades of practice that have gone into what he does is totally inspiring. So I'm looking forward to delving into that a bit more. Yeah.
Great. Peter, how have you been?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm dry, which is nice. It's very, very few and far between at the minute, but yeah, I'm actually dry. So there you go. But no, I mean, I was at the same thing with David Keown, and I found it very interesting. And we also went along to the British Championships, didn't we? Me and James went along then. Like Finn was there, and
Lauren was there.
Ben was there, all friends of the show. And I got a little bit of I was like, oh man, I'd love to get involved in that, and it's like, because I've got like the strength and all that. So I'm not saying it would be easy to transition into, but like, you've got a base level of where you can go from, right? But then I've already got a goal. So I flirted with I could go and do that. And then it's like, no, but I've already got a goal. So I'd have to give that up, which I haven't reached yet, to go and do the thing. So I parked it. I might do it in the future. Who knows? But no, what you're talking about, like, I've followed Denis for ages as well, and you watch the stuff he does, and it's like what gets me is when people start with me and they say, oh, I've done a bit of kettlebells before, I've done a bit of this before, I've done that. I know pretty much what I'm doing. You can see with Denis when he's doing stuff, he's still learning. He's always learning. He's always refining. There's always like that extra. I mean, once you get to a certain level, it's like tiny little changes, isn't it? But at the beginning, it's like, there's so much to get right. And Paul will know that because he's working with him, isn't he? So it's like, yeah, you'll be going through that right now.
I know we all watched that when Denis, when you did, we haven't introduced you yet, Denis, I'm sorry, but when Denis did the long cycle with the strict press with Paul McElroy in lockdowns, we watched that, didn't we? And that was incredible because from the start, Denis just didn't change for the whole 10 minutes. Yeah. In the last minute, he actually sped up, and it was just no breakdown in technique at all. Just so yeah, no, it's incredible. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'll let you carry on, Paul. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all right. No, this is. I was interested in hearing that. So, I mean, many of you are listening. Some of our kind of some of our listeners who are maybe deep into the world of strength and conditioning, particularly into kettlebells, will be very aware of something called kettlebell sport. And maybe if you've used kettlebells, you've seen them in the gym, you probably didn't know there was a sport. Now, we've had guests on in the past. We've got David Keown, we've got Fionn Toulan, both of which have kind of taken to kettlebell sport and achieved great levels of success in the amateur arena. And kettlebell sport is a really, it seems from the outside, quite a niche sport, but someone at some point thought, what can we do? How can we make this a competitive event? And it's a fascinating approach to fitness because it is an endurance weightlifting sport in which you lift the kettlebells for typically 10 minutes non-stop, but often for more. And there's a number of disciplines within kettlebell sport. And if you listen to some of the other episodes we've done with David and Fionn, you'll know a little bit of the background and the kind of mindset that it takes to do this, and certainly to succeed. But it's a very tough sport. It's originated in Russia, and it is a discipline which would test people physically and mentally. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating for a lot of people is as we've mentioned earlier, that technique, as your technique starts to degrade, it becomes a tougher and tougher and tougher experience over that 10-minute period. And that is why the mindset elements and the technique elements are so important. And so we've got probably one of the premier people in the world, and certainly someone who's moved over from Russia to the States, a world champion, undefeated champion in a part of kettlebell sport called long cycle. We've got Denis Vasilev. How are you doing, Denis? Lovely to have you on board.
Oh, doing great. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you guys. It's a great honor to chat with you guys, be on this podcast. We're excited. Feeling good.
Fantastic. I mean, up front, Denis has been coaching me for the last couple of months. And one of the reasons I approached him is I suddenly realized if I was to get anywhere in this, I needed to really focus on some technique. And that's certainly where I was lacking. And there's no better person, probably, certainly anywhere that I know than Denis. Denis has achieved so much. So, Denis, what I wanted to do really is just kind of give some insight to people about your background and what took you to kettlebell sport. Now, obviously, you're currently in the States. You're in California. I think it's Oakland, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I dream.
And you're now a personal trainer, and you've been in the States for a few years, but you competed in the Russian national team in kettlebell sport, where kettlebell sport is a much more recognized kind of discipline, and it's maybe a bit newer over in the UK, States, maybe Europe. It's a tough sport. And really, competing and achieving in Russia it's a shark tank. It's almost difficult to explain to people how tough the sport is. So perhaps it might be worth telling some of our listeners what got you into this sport and what took you and gave you the momentum to take it to where you did.
Yeah, well, I'm honestly still quite shocked how I end up, in California, talking on podcasts about kettlebell sport because, even in Russia, I mean, maybe situation changed, by now, but at least the times when I was about to start it, like late 90s, it wasn't anything fancy or, to brag about, it was more like kind of, not like a village kind of sport, but like cool guys was going to like somewhere else, I don't know, maybe mixed martial art. Oh, and actually, that's how I started. I was in mixed martial arts still from age 6, and kind of I first like years went through like kind of was finding myself, like was a little bit of a boxing couple months, and then a bit of a kickboxing, and then a bit of a karate. Like it was just a few months, and then I finally kind of meet the like first real coach who's made a man of me. I think it was this hand-to-hand combat. So I think it's like I started probably like fighting like age 8, and I was doing it up till like high school. So I think that was like foundation of a character and just athletic physique. But when I get to like teenager, age, watch Terminator 2, Arnold Schwarzenegger 90s. So I really get kind of, this inspiration of bodybuilding, and I wanted to get bigger, stronger. So I start thinking about attending the gym. Well, and that's what I did last 2 years of high school. And there was just a kettlebell sport competitions in in the city, and our teacher of a physical culture, he just once entered the gym and said, okay guys, we need to form the school team, competitions in a couple of months, so here's a pair of 24s, let's go. Best, like, well, basically now it's how to say, doing a test for, you know, best guys will go to the team. Like, I don't think there was any explanation at all, you know, what's the deal, you know, like insertion, rec, come on. Like, just bells should end up over your head, so here you go, the best you can. And so I did like 25 jerks, 25 snatches per arm with 24, and he said, okay, good enough. Yeah, I was 15 back then. So he said, okay, you have 2 months, see you. So also wasn't any like programming offered or anything, so kind of for him was good enough that we're in the gym lifting weights, so that's the way to go. And was a great gentleman. I mean, he's like was a wrestler with a great sense of humor, like super kind. Well, you know, good and proud in what he's doing. But yeah, the best advice I remember for him was to eat meat and drink milk. So that was that's
Seemed to work.
something that that's something I carry from the very first well, coach, I would say.
I love that. That's just great, though, isn't it? That, like, because of all the intricacies of everything now, it's like lift that, eat that, and drink that. Done. See you later.
We were talking last week on all the kind of different kind of optimizations that a lot of podcasts have things about different ways of optimizing sleep, different ways of optimizing testosterone. Our last podcast was on that. But actually, sometimes you just got to keep it simple, haven't you?
Yep.
Yeah. And I was just so hungry, I would say, excited about all this weight trainings. And again, there was no methodology, and I'm quite sure the machines was organized in the room just by its size, you know, so the way it fits the best the room. But I just was basically was doing circles around the machines, whatever it's like. I remember was like you know, the squat rack, and then like a leg press. So I mean, like right now I can see that basically, you know, like probably, you know, that wasn't making much sense to do, like, you know, all these exercises the way, you know, the machines are organized. But I would just keep going around till the hours of the gym run out, and then, you know, okay, I'll go home. And at some point my blood pressure went up, like an age of like 15, and it's, well, I don't remember numbers exactly, but it was something out of the range differently. And well, my parents are doctors, and like they measured, say, hey, you just should take it easy, you're doing something like probably not exactly good. And that was first kind of a moment for me when I think, okay, there's probably should be some methodology in it, like it should be some rules of you know, to say, is it enough or it's not enough. And I yeah, there was another teacher, and I just asked, do you have any manual about, I know, this weightlifting? And it was some like very basic brochure. So that's probably was the very beginnings of what well, it was a long way, but what's, you know, the reason why now I have a training methodology book, because I just very confused at the beginning, myself, totally confused. And I was well, strong, healthy, excited, but didn't know where to direct all this energy, all this, you know, testosterone and all this force. And that's, you know, pretty dangerous, and might be well, very frustrating, you know, when you like have all that and you just, you know, drain it to like some wrong direction. You can lost faith, you can lost excitement and inspiration, and, you know, probably many guys never found, you know, their way out. And I feel lucky that I did. And, you know, once I start making sense, you know, okay, what's happened to me, you know, last years. And well, I don't know where it came, maybe from my father, but I the first time I step in the gym, I start making like notes what I'm doing in the gym, and I still have all these notebooks from. Well, actually, I wasn't doing notes about this like random circles in the gym, but from 2001, I have my diaries, like where every single, not only in every single workout, every single set is written down, the weight, the reps, and even sometimes like emotional notes, body weight. And that was actually, and still my data, that I analyzing and went into, well, it's now my training methodology.
That's what we've had Dan John on, and he's got that, hasn't he? He's got all his training books back for many years. What was that, Pete?
No, sorry, I was just going to ask Dennis. So the first competition that you did when you were just given the 24s and told to get on with it, you've got 2 months. How did that first competition go?
I was able to increase my results to around like 40, 50 jerks and under 100 snatches. I think it was something like 80 maybe reps.
But that's a single hand switch, isn't it? With a 24 at 15 years of age. So you still got maybe 40, something like that. At 15 years of age with a 24 kilo. Yeah. with no training or no directed planning, you just worked it out yourself pretty much.
But well, it was the training routine itself. Well, I mean, I cannot recall any memories of like being hurt or pulling something well, at least I don't remember it. I don't remember me falling off the training routine. It was quite random, and again, I don't know, was I lucky about it, or maybe it wasn't that bad of a technique, but it definitely wasn't a great one, because, well, I remember clearly the rack issues. Like elbows totally wasn't on the stomach at all, and it started like this, but it's end up like this from here, being lean back a lot. And well, it took, to fix my rack, it took me my first competitions, when I never had any single adjustment of a rack and no any single roll on the shoulder, was the Championship of Russia 2012. 13 years later. 13 years. So that's how well, I'll call it, it's nasty habit it was, this having a poor rack. And well, I don't mean to complain, and I think it's like a more butterfly effect, like say what he wants to change in the past. Oh, I wish I had a brilliant coach from the first step, but maybe I got spoiled, and never get to where I am. So that's why I think everything that happened to me happened for a reason. But again, it was tough, but probably because wasn't any proper instructions and wasn't any, like in this 2 kilogram weight increments. Well, that's why technique was suck, and well, I wasn't able to figure out this elbow situation. And in a few years, 2001, I think it was a competition when right in the middle of the set, like before set, like my best was about like 80 jerks, 24s, and somewhere minute number 3, 4, I got my one elbow stuck into the pelvis, like this side rack, what it's called now. Like I was able to stuck one elbow, and well, I stopped sliding off, and I end up with 120 or 127 jerks. So I'm like gain like almost like a 30-40% hit CMS. And that was the first time, like, wow, okay, that's a thing, that's a way to figure it out. It's not just a pure struggle and pain. So there's some tricks how it should be done. So it was kind of a little bit of a fresh air to me, and a little bit of a hope. And that was the moment when I decided to give it a try for 32s. Like this was 2001. Before that, it was only 24s. So I start like practicing a little bit, trying like some cleans and jerks with 32s. Yeah.
It's difficult to explain to people what it feels like to have two 32-kilo kettlebells on your in front of you for the time period, and then putting them overhead. It's quite a brutal experience. I mean, you mentioned as you were going through kind of your start, the role of kind of mentors throughout your career, and it seems, especially from reading your book, that you do highlight coaches that you've worked with and major influences, because you also alluded to the fact that there's a lot of energy when you're a young guy that can be directed into loads of different things, both good and bad. What do you think kind of kept you focused over this period of time that you spent 13 years perfecting this as a sport? I mean, what was it? Was it the mentors? What did they teach you really that gave you that kind of focus?
Yeah, and well, up till now, even in Russia and internationally, there's not too many experts of kettlebell sport. Well, I mean, I'm talking to like a local level. Of course, internationally, if you will browse in internet, well, there will be a list of guys. But if you just, let's say, a kid, and especially back then, when it wasn't much of a internet access, like there is not the thing like you would just walk in the local gym and say, hey, who's coaching kettlebell sport here? I want to sign up for a class, right? And here we go, like I know another Denis Vasilev, and just will line out for you the training methodology and all the tips about technique. So that's why like my well, if we're talking about like a really kind of advanced programming and technique, I got access in like late 2007 when I met Sergei Rachinsky, and it was like after 8-9 years of kettlebell sport. And before that, the gentleman who was leading me, they wasn't exactly well, actually each next mentor I work with was closer and closer to kettlebell sport, but still there wasn't their main specialization. But they just was a great man, they had lots of sympathy to me, and they was in general a very good specialists of a sports and the physical culture. So they maybe didn't know exactly what this kettlebell sport is about, some details of programming or technique, but they had understanding of general sport physiology and principles of organizing the training cycle, because the timing is applying to any sports, like about like a 12 weeks of a progression and graduate increased loads, kind of fundamentals. So they knew that, and that's I think what kept me safe. Maybe progress wasn't that rapid at the beginning, but I was definitely getting stronger, and they was sharing their own experience with me. And again, the first teacher of the physical culture, he was a wrestler, like I think it's the type of wrestling, a Greco-Rome wrestling. That's where you're not allowed to grab legs. I think only upper body. So that was his experience, and then. My second mentor in institute was a gymnast, and then the third one, Timofey Nikolaevich, actually he's the one who guided me to master of sport. He was an Olympic weightlifter, so and he was the first who actually was writing me programs, and he actually the one who already had experience of working with kettlebell lifters, and that was Eduard Akhraменko. He's actually this particular athlete. He's the one who inspired me being a kettlebell sport athlete and really focus on that, because I graduated from school and went to the institute, and I still was kind of decent mixed martial artist. Like it was by then, like was 7-8 years experience. And I also same teacher in the school, he was calling me to compete in arm wrestling, so I was doing a little bit of arm wrestling, and then it was a kettlebell. So kind of like almost equally was keeping shape in like this 3 different activities, and didn't made up my mind, okay, like that what will be, you know, the sport I will go with. But when I saw Eduard Akhraменko, he did, you know, probably he was only the professional athlete in the city where I was growing up, and he did this beautiful, you know, like a machine gun, you know, jerks like 200 or something with 24s, and well, maybe 250 snatches. Well, I mean, like a pro result on amateur bells, but he just made it look so beautiful. And the first time was just amazed how just beautiful it can look. And well, I kind of start doing like researches. Okay, who's his coach? Where he's working out? And that was the Timofey. And I literally almost like fall on my knees. I said, I don't have any cash, any money, so I cannot really pay for classes. But whatever can I do? You know, clean the gym, or just can you accept me as your student? And well, he's like, took him a minute to think, but I said, okay, let's see what we can do. And well, that's how it started. Yeah, with Timofey, and then yeah, so we get a master of sport in biathlon first, and then we confirm it in long cycle. So that was 2000 late 2004, early 2005, and then I moved to St. Pete, and that's where I meet the dream team, the champs. So basically, in the Timofey, he made me advanced kettlebell lifter, but guys in St. Pete, they made me a champion.
You're a world champion, but really getting into the Russian team must be incredibly tough because the level of competition there far exceeds probably what you're seeing globally. You know, there's so many, because it's more embedded in culture, and you know, there's obviously a bigger history of it. You know, when we look at the results of the Russian team, it must be so tough just to make it into the Russian team, let alone come out on top, you know?
Better to even not think about it if you're working on it. You see, it's I always was like from the childhood attracted to active lifestyle, and you know, being healthy and working out. I never was kind of avoiding a hard work. I just like it, you know, and like to be in the shape, and it's still, I think, my main motivator to working out. And I never was that competitive guy. I just wanted to be good, and it was more like, and from very beginning, even when I did the mixed martial arts, it was like my own fight, you know, to fight my own fears. You know, I wasn't like craving to knock someone out. I just was fighting myself to not be afraid and not chicken, you know, to step on this ring and not let myself down, not embarrass, you know, my mom or my father. I said, like, I'm here. Well, I should just take it, you know. I should just focus, you know, what I'm doing here. But I never was really dreaming of being a world champion. And when I started really like serious trainings for kettlebell sport, there's a ranking systems in Russia. Everything have ranking systems, like even Olympic weightlifting, Olympic sports, and it's a national approved system. And if you achieve a certain level, so many doors open for you, and it's scholarships. You know, if you're a master of sports, so you can get a scholarship to, like, you know, to a university, and well, you simply got paid if you made it to even the local team of your city. Well, and of course, if you go higher. So that was a motivation. Of course, I thought, well, it will be cool to get a master of sport. You know, it's a cool license, you know, that you get, like, well, the ranks like 3, 2, 1, and like CMS, they're temporary, only for 1 year. You need to renew it every year, otherwise you lost it. But MS, that's the first one that goes for life, you know, have its number, have like a cool medallion. And I said, well, that will be awesome to get MS. And so, well, that was the goal. But yeah, when I got it, well, there was another rank above it. There was like MSIC, and that's a Master of Sport International class. And that's just a charts of numbers. And again, that's mostly chart for like, how say for you personally, that's not about actually winning someone on the stage. That's just, are you capable of this 80 reps or not? You can do it on your own in your garage. You can go do it like whatever, wherever, you know, in some stage, but it's just the reps. That's a kettlebell you need to lift. That's the reps you need to do. And, you know, myself as, again, just, you know, well, you know, you can apply that to myself on like a, well, perfectionist or achiever. Well, I mean, I was trying to get better and better. And I said, okay, I get MS 67 reps. So, wow, maybe that's the next goal, to get 80 reps. And that's what we was working on with like my coach Sergey Rachinsky, with whom we won all of these competitions. And well, speaking of all this, you know, excitement or level of rivalry on competitions, does not really matter all this much. And I think that's probably true for any other sport. So, you know, you shouldn't overestimate the importance of your achievement. Otherwise, it just will be way too overwhelming. It's just totally wrong thoughts to have in your head, you know, when, again, any sport, and you think, oh, if, you know, I will hit this number, that will be all times best result. You know, it will be, no one ever done it before. You know, many people try and all of them fail. You know, if this kind of thoughts will be in your head, I don't think that will do any good. And the best thing to do is just look on your spreadsheet, you know, what you've done, you know, what numbers telling you, and, you know, what you know, comfortable with. Well, if it's like running with speed you're running, or kettlebell sport, which how many reps per minute you do, and, you know, if it makes sense, you know, you're just going for it. And well, and actually my coach, it's like oh, kind of browsing around, just rewatched Rocky some time ago, you know, when his coach was saying, you need a manager, you know. Yeah, so you will not repeat my mistakes. So my coach, he says, actually, he was also like many jobs in one. Beside being a coach, he definitely was a great manager, and he was a great psychologist, and he did all this math for me. I mean, I wasn't really looking around like what results others have. But he knew it 100% very exactly in each weight class. He had all this data, and I think that's what his calculations was based on. You know, what like good goal for us numbers wise, so it will be secure and safe, you know, to get the first place. And that's how we just right away, just when I just started working with him, said 90 reps. That's our goal. And that's it. That's what I was thinking about, 90 reps. You know, I wasn't thinking how many people will be in my weight class, what's the results now in Championship of Russia, what's the results in the world. I wasn't cared about it at all. What I was scared about, how can I handle 9 reps a minute for 10 minutes? And actually what he did is he took the rep with a bit of a delta. Well, I mean, with a little bit like a boost on top what we need to win, because actually the first place was like quite secure, you know, on like low 80s reps, like 81, 82, and we was like all what I was thinking about 9. And it took me like first time I officially get 90 reps in 2011 World Championship. And so basically, well, I qualified to the national team 2008, so it was like 3-4 years, and I was going for competitions, and I was missing the 90 reps, and for me it was like a failure, you know. I wasn't like by 2011 I you know, I was going back from the trip, and kind of I feel shame to look on my coach eyes, because it's again was like 87, 86, 85. And that's also all what I'm thinking about, but it was way enough to get the first place. So I was bringing this gold medal in my pocket, but kind of feel shame that I failed my coach, you know, and didn't get 90 reps. And yeah, that's why I think I wasn't really, you know, worry about, you know, others around me.
I think that's great. Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I think that's great, because it's this is where I suppose, even though you're talking about competing at elite sport at the world level, it can transfer over to anybody, because the sport that you're competing in, kettlebell sport, you are against others, but it's a solitary sport, isn't it? You're there It's not like playing tennis against someone else or soccer or boxing or anything, because in lots of sports, in theory, you know, you don't necessarily have to play your best game, but if the other team or the other person makes some mistakes and doesn't do well, you can still win. But whereas having the attitude that you have for this very sort of solitary sport, it's just focusing on your numbers. And yes, you're competing against others, but you're on a platform on your own. And while you're competing, you've got no idea what anyone else is doing. So I think that that's something that people can really, like you said, take away for their own training. You're not really competing against anybody else. You're setting your own targets, you're setting your own achievements, and you're just working to get there. And really, it doesn't matter what other people are doing around you. If you hit where you're trying to get, then you're going to win in terms of the competition that you're doing, or succeed if it's a fitness person, a general person training in the gym.
Yeah. And it's also a consistency. You know, I was like, there was some years when second place was like really far, like away behind the reps I was showing. You know, like I was doing like mid 80s or even 90, and like second place sometimes was like 67, you know, or like low 70s. And even some guys in the team, if you know, similar situation happens, well, they just succeeded by a couple reps and put it down and kind of like spare the energy for a future sets. But for me, it's always was like well, I never done it. And my thinking behind it was that if I will do such thing, it will be a crack kind of in my head, in my brain, in terms of my like a motivation, you know, and kind of it will be like escape road from finish the business. Kind of it's spoiling you, I think. It's at some point, you know, if you like, that was easy, you know, I don't need to do 10 minutes. Why even should train for 10 minutes? You know, I know that no one will be there, you know, I'll just, you know, just chill and just go my easy pace. And wow, it's good that it's, you know, happening, but then once you will get a serious opponent, you might not be able to catch up with your chill, you know, years. And that's why I was just always doing my best, because, well, it seems like it's competitions is the place for guys who's doing their best. And I was quite sure that nothing really like extraordinary about me. And there should be a guys, you know, similar level, you know, and one day they will show up. So I'll be ready for it, you know, and better get. I always feel like, you know, if it's like a easy competition, I say, okay, you know, I get another year to get even better than I am. It was almost like, well, actually, that's speaking of, you know, being competitive for willing to win. And well, I just said at the beginning, I was dreaming to become a champion. But well, once I won it, you know, and once, you know, I you know, hold the title, you know, being a world champion, you know, and holding a record. Well, again, that was official record, but I honestly felt like, you know, I had more in me, like I was chasing towards like 90 reps. And at some point, I think it was around like 2013, 2014, where I had this like, you know, feeling and almost like ultimate dreams that it pace 10 start to feel like, you know, I probably, you know, if everything will go, like if I do everything right, I probably can hit 100, you know, because well, and Paul are familiar with my programming, is that it's like basically as longer the set, as shorter the set, as faster the pace. So let's say if you, I don't know, for competitions, you're planning to do 90 reps, it's a 10 minutes set, and you need to do 9 repetitions a minute. So a couple of weeks before competitions, you have a 7-minute set, and it's ideally should be like maybe at least 1 rep faster, like 10, and then 5 minutes, even a little bit faster, maybe 11 or 12. And like starting from, I don't know, maybe 2010, 2011, like I was doing like 7 minutes pace 10 kind of, well, that was basically kind of a regular test. And even, you know, I often was accelerating at the end. So, and we was dropping to 9 for competitions, but again, it was something that I feel like, wow, this probably can be done. And so, yeah, I was just really trying to, you know, make improvement every next year was heading towards this goal. Yeah, it's yeah, I don't think that there is such thing as a routine really. Well, I mean, or workouts when it's no goal whatsoever. You know, it should be something that pulling you, you know, to the gym, and something that, you know, something fundamental. You know, what you're working at.
I think that's the thing they talk about, kind of the difference between exercise and training. Being exercise is kind of moving and doing stuff without a kind of an endpoint or without a focus or without a goal, whereas training, which is obviously what you're talking about, has, you know, has an end destination or has a point, has a reason. You know, you're training for something, whatever that is, you know. And I think that's where we've spoke about this before on the podcast, where you know, ideally people will eventually, if they're going to keep active for the rest of their life, they need to move from maybe an exercising mindset to a training mindset, whatever that goal might be, you know. Do you agree with that now that you're working with kind of normal people, if you like, and you're not just working with elite athletes? Yeah,
that's just a brilliant idea, and that's I'm 100% supporting this idea. And well, for myself personally, it takes some time to figure it out. And first it was just a sport, you know, and kind of my own business. But right now, that's only the way I work with people. And speaking of goal, everyone should have a goal. You know, you choose what goal you decided to achieve, but it must be something, and it can be, well, can be well, even if you're not a professional athlete. And in kettlebell sport, you see the main difference of a kettlebell sport from any other, you know, exercises with kettlebell is that it's a mission. You have a mission, a very obvious one, that you need to, at certain, you know, point, there's a deadline ahead of you, and needs to be ready for this type of a performance. And that's everything spinning around it. You know, it's like the whole how to say, everything makes sense. Your consistency, why you need to go to the gym 3 times a week, why you need to sleep well, why you need to eat well, because you know that, you know, your trainings, they're heading somewhere. You're not just browsing, you know, I do a little bit harder today, a little bit easier tomorrow. And like, you really, everything is organized, and you know, you do whatever you want to do, but in 2 months you should be ready for 10 minutes with 32s. You know, you can do any training cycle, you know, it's go ahead, but you need to be ready for it. And if you will, that's it. Yeah, it's good for you, everything is great. But if you don't, well, it means everything was wrong. Yeah, that's another actually quite a heavy, you know, thing to understand, that it's exactly like that. You know, thinking about like to proving one training methodology right or wrong. All what's matter is your output, how well you done at the end. That's where all of the mysteries will be unrevealed. You know, who's a brilliant and who was just wasting his time. And that's just a great motivation. You know, like, I'm doing all this programming, I see it's coming, I know, like, you know, there's like milestones, you know, like first quarter of the training cycle, half, and then 3 quarters. So I need to, by this time, I need to be at this level, be ready for 5, and then I should be ready for 7. And kind of, you know, now it's a little bit more GBP, you know, and then later should be less GBP, more cardio. So you kind of just forming yourself towards this goal. And well, and basically what it means that you achieving your best possible physical potential of yourself. You know, we're not compared to anyone, just whatever you have in you, in your genes. By doing a great organized preparation, you will be really make your best. And who knows, maybe it will be enough for first place in the world championship, maybe not, but you definitely will be in your best. And I think that's, also a fitness goal. Like people, who's coming to the gym, what they want. They want to get better, a little bit or a lot, but better, from where, they first time came into the gym. So that's a goal. And that's why it's also fair, even if your student is not planning to be a world champion, to for him to have a goal, and something to work on. And kettlebell sport is just brilliant. I think that's probably the reason why it's get so popular internationally, even not of its actual like professional sport aspect, but just how well you can apply it and use it in just as a fitness tool for yourself, because it's just very well organized. Well, besides the fact that it's also very convenient, it doesn't need much equipment, but it just this whole programming and training methodology, it motivates you to be consistent and pay attention to basically all of your abilities. Like for me, well, and I'm quite sure that a coach, probably in any other sport, do the same thing. But for me to understand what this person is missing, I need to see a couple reps of his long cycle, or better, even like a longer set, because it just, I can see he's missing strengths, which particular, maybe he have not enough legs, maybe he have not enough arms, maybe not enough back, maybe his cardio is out, maybe his mobility is out. So it's very clear, when I see someone doing long cycle. And that's why in my training routine, after warm-up, kettlebells going first, and then based on success or failure of a kettlebell sport sets, I program for him a GPP, well, general physical preparation, and we basically filling up the missing spots. So it's always thinking or behind the GPP. It's not just whatever, go do a circuit training. I know exactly what this person needs. Well, looking on his long cycle, and or like jerk or snatch, kettlebell sport exercises. And when you do beautifully with, in kettlebell sport exercises, well, most likely you will be a pretty fit and very well balancedly developed athletic person, with quite a good mobility and endurance and sense of balance and strengths. That's
interesting. So here we are. You're in Russia. You're competing at a national level. You mentioned before we started recording that you're really, between the years of 2008 and 2015, you're at top of your game. You're really proud of those things. You're unbeaten. You're obviously surrounded by other people performing at an extremely high level. I've seen you in a relay, for example, with some of your Russian teammates like Ivan Denisov, all of which are fantastic athletes in their own right. And then you've made a decision to come over to the States, and you set up a business, and you set up a new life. Firstly, what prompted you to come over to the States? And secondly, kind of, what's been the difference being surrounded by, elite athletes to then working with general population, and obviously the cultural differences as well? I mean, what's it been like for you to make that transition?
That's also quite amazing, and it's hard to believe that it's happened. But at the beginning, at the very beginning of my journey, the kettlebell sport doesn't seem like international, kind of sport, that can, really open the world for you. And I wasn't. I never saw it even from the beginning, but I've been a curious person from the childhood, and speaking of when you think about getting better, it's eventually will end up with psychology. because that's our main limitator here, in our head. You go as far as your head allow you to go, especially when, missions get quite challenging and, well, yeah, as higher level athlete you are, or in general, as higher level of expertise, whatever field it is, it's a science, it's a sport. Well, it's getting mental. Well, I think it's in a good way. You basically need to learn to handle your emotions and understand the pattern of things and of your behavior. And that was it's attract my attention, like I don't remember since when, but a long time ago. It's basically, if I'm not that big of a reader, I never was reading any reading for fun, we can say science fiction. Like if I was reading anything, it was either psychology or some Russian classics, but it's basically like, I understand that it's psychology, basically like Dostoevsky. It's so I always was curious about the mentality, the way our thoughts are organized, and I always was curious to meet new people, and it's especially interesting and smart and strong people. So I never had a problem to be underdog. I always wanted to be, and I wish I always can be underdog and have someone to look up to, because it's just so inspiring. The moment you're the best guy in the room, it's the worst. That's when you start falling apart and get spoiled. It's like it's the end of your progress. You really always needs to find some inspiration, and that's why I just always was very curious to meet new people. And well, that's how it was exciting for me to become like an athlete of a national level. But then once the success came and I start to receive invitations to teach internationally, wow, that was just overwhelming. I just was so excited. Like it's still with John, we have a jokes, back then I had this button Nokia phone. And so I have a basic translator, and it's on my English. Like first international course was in Russia, actually, in St. Pete 2010. And yeah, I just wasn't able to stop myself. I wanted to talk to guys, but I don't really have much of language knowledge. And so I say a word and I go to my translator, and look for it, so John was laughing that I have a magic thumb. So I was really kind of was trying to just understand and ask why guys so excited about kettlebell sport and what they like about it. And yeah, it just was so amazing to see how interested people about this sport. And again, it's just this whole experience was so positive, and I don't know, all of the people I met, there's such a amazing and positive energy. And well, thanks to kettlebell sport, I've traveled quite a lot. I think it's around maybe 30 countries. I talked in Asia, in America, North, South America, in Europe, and it's like a password, kettlebell. You said kettlebell, and here you go. There's a friends, and then. Again, it was just such an amazing experience to see how different yet similar all we are. It can be like a different, nationalities or cultures, beliefs, but we're kind of excited. Well, at least in the community, I was speaking about the kettlebells, and this was kind of a topic for us to talk about. And it just was such a happy and positive experience. I can't believe it's happening, because at some point, I get fond of kettlebell sport, it's my own way to exercise, but I wasn't thinking that it will be something that my clients will be interested in. And I was a personal trainer at first, and was walking around machines, so pull down, bench, and and that's that's a training routine, definitely. But yeah, honestly, I haven't felt it so exciting and kettlebells that I would really like to do. And once well, basically what the routine was is that I have my one-on-ones, and in between, like I have a couple hours break, so I change and I do my like kettlebell sport routine. And once in a while, my students was cutting me on, finishing my last set. And then one student said that, hey, Dennis, like you're doing this thing, and why you like, I'm paying you money, why you teaching me like doing this like machines there? Why you never share what you do? And I say, well, okay, I never thought you'll be interested in it, but would you like to? He said, hell yeah, I want to learn. So okay, let's do it. And it just was so easy. I said, wow, like this was the moment. Like, is that can be my job also? That I will be just having fun with people, just showing them how to do long cycle, how to be good at it. And that's what they're like really enjoying. So wow, that's awesome. And just within a few years, like my whole clients switched to like kettlebell sport. By 2013, I was teaching kettlebell sport only. I stopped doing any general fitness coaching, and I said it's just amazing. And again, by some reason, the interest to kettlebell sport as a routine actually might in beginners and amateur level is way higher outside of the Russia. So in Russia, well, probably because it's like a government supported sport, and like it in schools and universities, many people have access to it. So it's somewhat like, although the situation also slightly changing, and it's like more interest now, but mostly it was like just a professionals. Mostly it was like a teenagers and guys who's like heading towards national championship, wants to compete, but not that much of a like a fitness type of activity. And it just naturally was for me to start shifting towards the international teaching and West, because it just where was most of the interest, and I really wanted to focus on kettlebell sport. And well, that's what I do now.
No, it's fascinating. So you've got, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned right at the beginning is taking all these notes and starting to create a methodology. Something that I mean, if the casual kind of kettlebell enthusiast starts browsing the internet, there's a lot of kettlebell routines and there's a lot of workouts for kettlebells. Obviously, in the States, and originally, in the early 2000s, popularized by Pavel and the hard style. So a lot of the routines that people find are typically geared towards the more hard style method of kettlebell use. So it's more difficult to really find some of the kettlebell sport, because it's a different technique. It's obviously an endurance sport, so a lot of it's around efficiency. As I know from my own personal experience, as I get more tired and my technique falls apart and my mind starts to melt, you suddenly realize how important the programming aspect is in order to keep your mind focused and to build that confidence, that physical confidence, and to allow your technique to breathe and not fall apart. You've developed your own methodology, and you released a book maybe a couple of years ago on that, and you've recently updated it. What have you, I mean, how's it been updated, and what do you think the significant changes have been, and what are you hoping to be able to impart to someone who buys that book?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the first edition I've published 2015, and this basically was the English translation of my graduate work from the University of Lesgov of the physical culture and sport. And that's actually thanks to this university, I was able to transform my notes into somewhat, a document and a book and methodology where I kind of applied the known, methods or formulas to describe sports and training methodology. And this book on 2015, I even, like in Russian, I called it as a training methodology of advanced kettlebell lifters. So that's basically was mostly analyzing of my own experience and programming of well, to achieve a maximum result. And it's still fair, and it's nothing wrong with this book, but it just because the principles of a training methodology are the same for professionals and beginners. The frame of it, the skeleton of a programming, and the difference is the weight of the bells, obviously, but the volume and like principles of rest and work during the sets, and the percentage of the pace, amount of repetitions, it's across all of the levels of the athletes. But these things, how to make a first steps, they wasn't break down in the first book. So it was, I think, a little bit hard to read for people who just wants to start from the scratch. So to read the first book, you should have some experience and understanding, of what kettlebell sport is about, and then you read it and say, oh, okay, like there's actually kind of things that I was working on, but it's explained this way here, and that's that's how you organize, that's how you progress, and it's okay to use lighter weights, and so through the years when I start, well, and that I start teaching 2010 internationally, and it's kind of was building up, and it's actually like 2014 to 2017, 18 was like the most busiest years of me teaching, and then teaching in person. So it was again like amazing experience to see many lifters all over the world of different level and see their journey. So that's definitely was motivation for me to keep analyze, like, okay, what I'm teaching, practice and perfect my ways to describe things. And then pandemic hits, and with this pandemic, we came up with idea of online courses and certifications, and that was a motivation for me to get better in Zoom. And then I said, okay, it's Zoom, it's a screen, so I probably should have some sort of a presentation, it's just handy. And I never ever had any PowerPoints or presentations on my in-person courses. It's always was like a kind of a reflection of a students group. It was always like a personalized, which is a good thing in one hand. On another hand, kind of also it's never was 100% of information, which maybe not needed all the time, but it's good to have it. And when it was an online course, so I have all this time to get ready for it, and I just start writing down the PDF presentations for every class I'm teaching, and like tactical planning, strategical planning, GPP, lifting technique. And it first was based on my book, but each next class, I was kind of adding more notes, and by like 2020, I actually had quite like a full-size, great PDF presentations for my own classes that was almost better than my book. And I said, okay, that's probably the time to actually maybe combine these two, and that's the time for updates. So basically, the update of the second edition of my book was for me adding all these PDF presentations for my online certifications that I was teaching for last 3-4 years, plus the general experience, and plus another like 6 years of data of my own training routine. So there is like I finally calculated amount of sets I've done, 10-minute sets with bells, and just did some mathematical analytics with it, and add more of training cycles, like literally from my spreadsheet. And I've added beginner programming. There's the basic like a 1 month long training cycle. So way more examples of actual programming. And I break down these microcycles, mesocycles, macrocycles, like, how to start, your own programming from the scratch. So it's basically way more, explain in the depth the training methodology from its beginning to the end with some more examples of training cycles. So that's what the second edition is about.
Is there going to be a hard copy of that? I know I've got the ebook.
Yeah, it's the publishing process, have its own complication. I thought I will publish the hard copy same day I published the ebook, but the margins was slightly off, and we actually end up just changing the layout of the whole book, because it's not just zoom on zoom. I mean, that's maybe how I think, being a kettlebell lifter, but the guys who actually do design, they say, well, it's just needs to resize the pictures, the fonts. So yeah, it takes a little bit more time, but on 21st, I believe I should get my manuscript. So yeah, I really hope I will publish the hard copy by the end of the April.
Fantastic. So I've actually, I mean, I think probably we've taken enough of your time. I've got a question actually from my son. My son is 7 years old, and
I know what this question is.
Well, I don't know. You tell me. What do you think it is?
Is it about arms?
Oh no, I've got that. Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. Well, it's a little aside. He did ask me. I mean, basically last year when you competed with Paul McElroy, and you competed in a variation of the 10-minute set where you did a variation of, say, long cycle, where you're, rather than jerking the kettlebell overhead, you were pressing 224s, which in itself is a brutal 10 minutes. And so it's fascinating to watch you two, Paul, who's a huge Paul McElroy, who's a friend of the show, who's an immensely strong individual, and then yourself, who specializes obviously in kettlebell sport, and that mixture of the two disciplines, the pure strength side, and then obviously your strength endurance that you bring. Anyway, my son was there, and I've got a great picture of him watching you two on the screen. He did ask me afterwards why I didn't have the same bumps on my arms, i.e. my biceps, but something to work on there, Dennis. But no, my son he's a pretty competitive kid, actually. He's much more competitive than I am. But he asked, I said, oh, I'm going to be speaking to Dennis, and and I said, do you have a question for him? And he said, yeah. He said, what makes you a champion, and what stops you giving up? Was his question.
Well, maybe in a few words, I can say that just never quit. That's a phrase, that's just spinning in my head for a long while. Maybe it's literally, about the kettlebell sport, because, it's, we're trying to not drop these bells earlier, than 10 minutes, but it's kind of, a general thing, it's whatever you start, you finish it, and when you have such rule, if you're really taking it serious, then you will think twice whatever you start. So basically, I'm so deep and in belief in this quote that it makes me scared, and I'm really thinking whatever I'm planning to start, because I know that I'll kill myself basically, if I'll do a wrong calculation and start something that I cannot pull out, that will be above my abilities. So that's why I always, do a good math and calculation or whatever I'm planning to handle or achieve. I do analytics. Is it possible? And what chances I have to get it done, and who can help me with that. And if everything works, and I feel like, okay, I honestly, I feel like if I do my best, I can hit it. Well, I'm going for it, and there is no stop halfway. When you start a training cycle, you just cannot stop it halfway. You just need to finish it, and even for sake of a science, because if you quit halfway, you cannot tell was it good half or bad, because you never score. How say you not score until you score. It can be an awesome training cycle, everything is great, but then you drop bells on the 5th minute, and basically means that it wasn't really a great training cycle. And then by knowing that, you scroll back, and you maybe actually will see the signs, okay, why it's end up being a really bad training cycle. Or opposite, it might feel like a mess and lots of stress and a lot of distraction, and you kind of almost blindly just, going to the gym and you're doing these workouts, and you step on this platform, you think it will be just horrible disaster, and you end up with pretty good result, and you say, holy, how this happened? Let's again scroll back. Let's see what's actually like what I did in this training cycle, and some very interesting things you might discover. Like again, it's not only workout, but your psychology and where your head is. Because sometimes it's not good to think too much about competitions, and it's good to have some distraction or kid crying or something, because it feels like a stress, but it's actually keep you safe from stress, burning yourself out, worrying about some kick-ass athlete who will challenge you. You will just not think about it, and you will not waste your mental energy for it, and you will be somewhat fresh on the platform, because you just wasn't worried about competitions. Yeah, I would say that never quit. Know what you're doing.
Fantastic. So well, I thought we'd wrap up there. Peter, have you got any final questions, any thoughts that you'd like to kind of...
I haven't got any questions. I've got a final thought. Based on what Denis, this always happens right at the end. I mean, you said some great things all the way through, obviously, and the longevity that you've experienced in this sport is immense. I mean, it's, people can hurt themselves doing it the wrong way. You've obviously clearly done it the right way and done it for a number of years, which is amazing. But what you said at the end about looking back through a training cycle and seeing the psychology of it, and so it's not necessarily the number on the weight, the number on the bell, the weight of the bell. It's the weight on your mind that can hold you back, and I think that hopefully resonates with people who are listening who aren't like competitive athletes, just normal people. And not that competitive athletes aren't normal, but you know what I mean. But it's there can be certain days of the week, like a Tuesday, maybe he's on a Tuesday, you always feel a bit rubbish for some reason. So that's not the day to go for your, go heavy or hard or whatever. It can, I've been thinking about this a lot in my own training, and about when I train the guys who I train as well. And it's like, some days they'll show up and they just want to go at it. And then other days they'll show up and they're not quite feeling it. And it's usually like, school holidays because they've all got kids or something, or like, in January when everyone's really busy back at work and things like that. So those sorts of things have to be considered in a training cycle. So it's not just about sets, reps, and weight. So I think that applies, like you've just said, obviously it applies all the way up to elite athletes as well. So I love that. And I think Mark Rifkin said something about him. He always feels the best on a Saturday when he's doing stuff, because that was the day he used to compete. He's competed his whole life in stuff, and Saturday was always the competition day. So that was the day he always felt great, because he always peaked on a Saturday in whatever it was he was doing. And that stuck with me. Like, yeah, because that's what you've conditioned your body to do. So, and your mind. So yeah, but thanks for that, Denis. Honestly, that's some great stuff in there. I'm gonna be listening to this again and making notes, I think.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, just I'll have to obviously get the book when it gets re-released at the end of this month. I know you can get the online version, but I'd love to have a hard copy. I like a proper book, to read. So I'll get that. And I think probably one of the biggest themes that you've spoke about over the last hour or so is one of our kind of favorite words, is consistency. And you mentioned it yourself, that kind of training day in, day out, following the program. Just so many people program hop, or they get this kind of shiny object syndrome, and they start something and then they stop and they go searching for something else. And like you say, if you're doing something, see it through. And if you don't see it through, you don't get a true measure of if it worked or not. So many people, they're constantly looking for the next best program, or the next best gadget, or the next best diet, or the next sleep hack or whatever it is. So I think just that consistency, and like you said, 2 kettlebells in a room, just you and the bells, it's all you need. You don't need, shiny and loads of technology and things. It's really simple. And I love the, eat meat and drink milk. I thought that was great. So, it's about as simple as you could get, but it was brilliant. Yeah, no. So thank you. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Dennis. It's been really fascinating. Thank you.
That's it. I mean, I work on 3-month programs with people. I mean, obviously, I run Paul McElroy's Amazing 12 in our studio, and that's 12 weeks where people focus. But it seems to me that when you talk about the development of your technique, by 2012, you're finally kind of happy with the rack position, that position with the kettlebells in front of your body. It was a 13-year overnight success. I mean, one of the things, I've worked with Paul McElroy in my own coaching and in my own kind of training, and develop that mindset. I mean, I think it's right when you say don't quit, because there's many times, and I would definitely credit Paul McElroy with helping me through this, where I just wanted to quit, where I doubted myself and I thought things were too hard. I mean, kettlebell sport is a sport which is just it is hard. I mean, it's physically very demanding. And you do, and I think a lot of people are attracted to it. And I think I'll probably count myself as one of those people, where just the sheer fact that you confront a lot in that 10 minutes, because you can't just do 10 minutes. I mean, there's probably someone out there who can just do 10 minutes, but of lifting those kettlebells, you really face a lot of things when you're doing something hard, and you do want to quit a lot. I mean, my entire business is based around people who have stopped at some point doing the thing that was going to make them healthy. And we often start thinking about all the traumas and all the challenges in our lives and the reasons why we can't do anything. And what I like about your story, Dennis, is you're talking about what it is to just show up and do the thing you said you would do. It's written down on a piece of paper. I'm going to do it. My coach says, do it. I do it. And really, your history of success is based around just doing it. You say don't quit, but it's almost I just did it, which I thought was fascinating. So, how's the best place for people to find out how to work with you, to kind of consume your ideas and obviously your book? I mean, how can people get in touch?
Well, that's my website. That's Denis Vasilev kettlebell.com, and I'm on Instagram under my name too, Denis Vasilev. Yeah, Denis Vasilev kettlebell, and that's pretty much will lead to my YouTube channel, my website, and Instagram. So that's where I'm mostly in touch with my students and kettlebell sport community. So I'm always checking on it, and we'll be totally happy for new people to reach out and explore kettlebell sport together.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, and obviously I always look forward to seeing what updates you've given in my own program, and I've got some hard work ahead, but thank you very much for making the time. And for guys, if you haven't checked out Denis before, please do kind of follow him on Instagram. You'll get an education in how to move well and how to really focus your kettlebell technique. But again, thanks to Pete and James, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode. So take care.
It's been a true pleasure. Thank you.